Yeah, friends, yesterday we discussed about the drama in late 19th and beginning of 20th century and how this drama changed the whole understanding of human relations and bringing the issues that middle class faced and problems of middle class discussed very seriously by many playwrights in the form of realistic plays and realism, a new literary movement, gave a kind of momentum to all these playwrights. Now we have discussed about beginning of 20th century. Now what is the condition and status of drama in early and mid 20th century? Very interestingly, 20th century itself was a very interesting century. Two world wars, so many pandemics, so many deaths, Great Depression, economic depression you have seen, so many happenings. Colonies are getting freed, new nations are emerging, new scientific developments are taking place. All those things took place in 20th century. So 20th century is having a kind of happenings always. And naturally, when happenings are taking place, drama was the genre which used to pick up these happenings as early and try to bring it in front of the audience. Now, if you see the drama of early 20th century, it nurtured the seeds of late 19th century realism into bloom. And did the drama stop at that point with a realistic technique, new realism, or realism being part of its presentation and experimentation? In 20th century, we find that drama experimented with audiences' expectations also. Drama experimented with this also. Very interestingly, Eugene O'Neill, the very famous American dramatist. Now, please understand this fact, my friends, that drama now is not restricted with Europe only, and especially English drama. Get out of Europe and spread all over the world. So, from late 19th century onwards, we can point out one thing and we can make it out very clearly that drama was not restricted with England or Britain only. It came out of Britain. It became a part of world where English used as a language. And as I said, 19th century saw so many English dramas written during one period. But later on, English drama was not that much very popular, not having any intellectual debates and discussion, as we have seen it yesterday, that it discusses melodrama. So we need to understand this fact that drama gets out of England and reach to various parts of the world. The experiments, the development that you find out in drama, all those experiments and new development that we discuss or we find it in understanding of drama, all these developments took place in 20th century when drama gets out of England, and that's why English plays were not that much popular. English, in the sense, British play. Look at the experiment done by Eugene O'Neill, the first ever American dramatist who made with an experiment. He is not the first dramatist, but the pioneer dramatist who tried to bring that sort of experiment in his play. His very famous play, Eugene O'Neill's very famous play, Desire Under the Elms. This Desire Under the Elms is a tragedy that features the ordinary citizen rather than any noble citizen. And this is the big change you find it out in tragedy. Because when we talk about tragedy in the next lecture, we need to have a clear-cut idea that what Aristotle said about tragedy, that tragedy needs to be a story of a one day of a noble person. Tragedy is of noble person, no common man. But in 20th century, you don't find any common person. In 20th century, you don't find any common person being part of, noble person being part of the society. Aristocracies are getting down. Aristocracies are not part of it. So instead of dealing with life of a noble man, tragedy of a noble man, playwrights started to discuss or brought common man, middle class man, ordinary man as the protagonist of the new tragedy. And this is the new kind of tragedy which is surpassing all the norms of the classical tragedy. Because if you see the tragedy, whether it is tragedy written by Greek playwrights or tragedy written by Elizabethan playwrights, look out, who were the heroes of Shakespeare's tragedy? All the heroes were noblemen. Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, Lear, Julius Caesar, Antonio and Cleopatra. All these people, they are noble. Oedipus was the king. Oedipus Rex, Oedipus the king. Agamemnon is a king. So tragedy always discusses about noble person. But this was a tremendous change that 20th century brought into drama. And that it brought a middle class person, ordinary person, as a protagonist of the story. So Eugene O'Neill's Desire Under the Elms is a tragedy, and it talks about tragedy of an ordinary man. The play focuses on farmers of New England. What is their condition? How these new farmers facing industrialization, how these new farmers are not able to cope up with the new industrialization and facing a severe crisis in their life. Or the very famous Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. Salesman is a concept of 20th century. And the play discusses about, invokes a sense of dreadful inevitability within the world of commercial salesmen. Nowadays, you will find out a lot of salesmen are in front of you. Salesman is again an ordinary man. He is not a noble person. And you will find out, my friends, 20th century tragedies discusses about the life of an ordinary man as compared to the characters created by Socrates, Sophocles, characters created by Shakespeare. 20th century tragedy talks about a tragic incidents, tragic life, tragedy of ordinary man. And why they are talking about this tragedy of this ordinary man? The reason is This ordinary man, this common man, or I can say this middle class man, was in the center of all the political, social, economic, cultural activities of the world. This common man, this ordinary man, all the policies, whether made by the state, whether made by the commercial agencies, all the policies were made by putting a common man, middle class man into the center, or middle class family into the center. And that's why the 20th century tragedy, and whatever thing happened, the middle class was hampered a lot. Whatever policies government will take, because nothing is in the hands of middle class person. He is something like a puppet. And he doesn't have any sort of his own saying. He has to follow someone. And that's why there is a lot of scope for bringing out the tragic elements in the life of ordinary man. And that's why 20th century tragedy, if you compare and if you try to understand and if you try to study tragedies, if you look at the 20th century tragedy and look at the Greek tragedy or look at the Shakespearean tragedy, you will find a lot of difference in those two tragedies. This was the very interesting experiment done by, and successful experiment done by, the 20th century playwrights. Another very interesting name, because as I said to you in the beginning, that 20th century is known for its experimentation. It experimented with lots of things. The two names I have mentioned it very categorically because these two playwrights have brought ordinary man into the center of discussion. The seeds which were sown down in Henrik Ibsen's play or George Bernard Shaw's play at the end of 19th century and somewhere in beginning of 20th century, the same seeds harbinged now and it was carried forward. Another very important name who brought a tremendous change in drama, that is Luigi Pirandello. Luigi Pirandello is basically an Italian dramatist. Now look out how slowly we have expanded ourselves. At the beginning, we started to talk only about Greek drama, then we moved to Roman, then added Greek and Roman, then we moved to English Elizabethan drama. We added Elizabethan drama with French drama. We tried to mix up both the things, and then we moved further to 20th century drama. Then we added Scandinavian dramatists, then we added American dramatists, and 20th century we added the whole world. Look at the expansion of drama. Look at the genre that expanded all across the languages of the world. And that's why we cannot say that what we are studying is only English or drama written in. We are studying drama written in English language, not British drama. We are not studying simply British drama. We are studying the drama written in English language. Either it is translated or it is originally written in English. Now, the very famous name Luigi Pirandello, why he is known into the history of drama, the reason is that his play, Six Characters in Search of an Author. This is a very interesting play written by Luigi Pirandello, which is translated in Marathi also by Chitrem Khanolkar. Natakkaracha Shodhat Sahapatra. This was the drama translated in Marathi by Chitrem Khanolkar. Every language in the world translated this particular drama. Six Characters in Search of an Author by Luigi Pirandello. This drama distinctively had absurd quality, and it expects us to accept the notion that characters on the stage are waiting for a dramatist to put them into the play. Characters are already there with their stories. And please understand, this is a very interesting thing that everybody is having his own story. And the characters are having their own story, and they are expecting that they should be keep into a drama by a dramatist with their stories. They are waiting on the stage, and there is a conflict between the actor, there is a conflict between the character, and the debate goes on, reaches to a particular understanding that actors are temporary and characters are permanent. This brings a big question in front of a middle class society, that what we are fighting for, what we are struggling for. Are we simply struggling for our own existence to be kept throughout? Because we have a very limited period of time with us. We are not going to stay for long in this world. And that's why, who are the mortals and who are the immortals? This debate initiated by this particular play. 6 characters in search of an author. Pirandello basically plays with our illusion, sense of illusion and expectation. The very, very famous story by Leo Tolstoy also. If you remember that story, how much land does a man need? 6 feet by 4 feet, where he is to bury it. This much land man needs in his life. But he is fighting for all the things throughout his life, to get all the things to his life. Now, you may have a doubt, sir, why these people are talking like this? These playwrights had seen a tremendous death during World War II. Let me tell you very frankly, my friends, we are very fortunate that we have not seen any kind of war yet. We have not experienced any kind of war. And that's why we don't know what kind of destruction a war brings into the lives of the people. Europe had seen 2 world wars. Although it titled as World War, but the basic ground, the major part of Europe was the target in World War I or in World War II. We Indians, we rarely faced, and especially we Maharashtrians, rarely faces any kind of war, because we don't have any border. Ask the persons living in Punjab, Rajasthan, Kashmir, that how they are living their life. At any time the war will begin and they have to run away, rush away, keeping everything back. So there is a question of your expectation, how much expectation you should have. And this was the major question raised by Luigi Pirandello. Another important name in 20th century drama is of Bertolt Brecht. Bertolt, Bertolt Brecht, Brecht. He was a German playwright, and he was known for his tremendous experiments in drama. What kind of experiment he did? He brought an idea of epic drama. Idea of epic drama. What is this epic drama? Now, if you remember that I said you when we are talking about Greek and when we talk about Aristotle, we talked about the 3 unities: time, action, and place. What Aristotle said, that drama should have 3 unities: the story of a nobleman, which has to take place, the life of one day of that nobleman, and at one particular place. So you cannot shift. So time, action, and play. That was a condition laid down by Aristotle. But what epic drama did, epic drama broke all those conditions. And the very famous play written by Bertolt Brecht, Mother Courage and Her Children. This play runs, the story of this play runs for 17 years. an idea that films usually follow. This idea was usually followed by films. 17 years, the war was going on for 17 years, and Mother Courage, the lady, she is a very powerful figure who had seen an endurance. She is a model of endurance. But Bertolt Brecht wanted his characters, wanted his audience to understand, to see that courage brings on much of her own suffering by trying to profit from a war. She is having one shop on a wagon and she used to sell the things to the soldiers. So for her, war should get continued so that she can make profit out of it. And the sole act of sacrifice in the play comes from her daughter Catherine, who warns the villagers about the destroying army who is going to invade that particular village. Now Brecht wrote this play as a sign of protest against World War II. It was a kind of protest. And please understand, Bertolt Brecht was staunch Marxist. And that's why Bertolt Brecht developed two things. One is epic drama, second is a theory of alienation, which was very much part of Marxist or part of Marxism, Marxist theory. Most of the playwrights during 20th century, as we have to understand the fact that this thing, that World War, the capitalism, the industrialists, they brought a kind of destruction. And to fight against them, the creative people followed a typical Marxist ideology. Playwrights around the world responded to the events of World War I, World War II, and the great communist revolution by Marx and Frederick Engels, later on Lenin in Soviet Russia, the Great Depression of 20th century. Playwrights started to discuss these problems developed out of these things. And these problems, when these playwrights brought in front of the audience in 20th century, they did not allow their audiences to sit simply and get entertained by certain story. No. They did not allow their audiences to sit comfortably and secure a darkness in the theater and try to simply enjoy the moments and get out of it. No, they raised questions. Whether it is Bertolt Brecht, whether it is Luigi Pirandello, whether it is Ernest or Eugene O'Neill or Arthur Miller, all these playwrights, they forced the audience to think. And they try to make the audience to realize the fact and realize their own condition that in which they are living right now. Now, it is the prime duty of any creative artist to make the society to get aware of the situations that in which they are living right now. The tremendous kind of suppression which need to have a kind of word, which require a kind of word to express. Playwrights give this suppression a word in their performances. After Second World War II, very prominent playwright named Samuel Beckett came with a very interesting play called Waiting for Godot, which we are going to study. Waiting for Godot, where he makes the audience to examine the human's eternal vigilance for the revolution of God or some transcendent meaning to the life. He raised the question that language is insufficient to express human emotions. Language failed at most of the time to express human emotions. He tried to bring out the idea that in this severe time, in this crisis, we need not to give up our hope. And that's why if you read the play or if you watch the play Waiting for Godot, you will find out that in Waiting for Godot, no person like a Godot is going to appear. When we talk about Waiting for Godot, I will tell you so many things of Waiting for Godot. I'm not going to read whole play, okay? I'm going to tell you very important things about Waiting for Godot or Tamburlaine. If you look at these developments, even his very famous play Endgame, where characters seem to be awaiting the end of the world, because after the World War II, the world was divided into two groups, and there was a Cold War between these two groups. And Cold War took place for a long time, from 1948-49 up to 1990. That is, for 40 years the Cold War was there between two superpowers, America and Russia. So everybody was waiting that, okay, somebody will put a nuclear bomb, because human beings first time saw the destruction of nuclear bomb in Second World War. Considering that science is a boon, but it appeared to be curse. And that's why in Endgame, Samuel Beckett brings a question of the end of the world. Characters are waiting that the world is going to an end. And this was the imagination of most of the people of the time, 50s and 60s, that one day Russia and America will fight and somebody will throw a nuclear bomb and the world is going to an end. On the one hand, these issues related with human existence, the issues of human separation, the issues of survival of human beings, part of drama written in 20th century. On the other hand, a playwright like Tennessee Williams relied on personal experience in writing a play called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which portrays the themes of homosexuality, portrays the themes of marital sexual tensions, the themes which were not at all part of any kind of discussions among the people. Tennessee Williams brought all those things in front of us. Tennessee Williams tried to show the people the real picture of their own personal life into a play called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Till that time, till Tennessee Williams brought a kind of, you can say, personal life and sexual desire of human society, contemporary modern American society. She brought a kind of revolution in American theater, where American theater was only talking about certain mythic or certain, you can say, veiled mythic terms and of ordinary people's life, as discussed by Eugene O'Neill's Desire Under the Ems or Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams brought a new world to the people. Nigerian playwright, on the other hand, the very famous Nigerian playwright Wole Soyinka, who won a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1986. Wole Soyinka portrays the complex intersection of persons past and present. Complex intersection of past and present in his very famous plays, The Strong Breed, which was set up in Africa, and it was a reminiscence of the very famous Greek drama Polis. He experiments with Greek tragic forms in a very famous play by Euripides, The Bache, which is also set in Africa. So Soyinka's presentation of drama, Soyinka writing about drama, which provides us a kind of nature of culture, what kind of culture that we are following and we are living in. And he is reflecting on a kind of drama's power in our lives, what drama can change our life. He is discussing all those things in his plays. Wole Soyinka, very famous African playwright. So if you find it out, my friends, that modern dramatists from the turn of 20th century saw various wars, saw various destructions in their own routine life. They developed a new, you can say, thematic concern and discusses the themes of dramatic illusion, as well as the questions concerning about the relationship of an audience to the stage and the players. What is the relationship between them? Because if you remember, the beginning of 19th century and mid-19th century, drama was a part of entertainment, as middle class only enjoyed the watching drama. But 20th century shivered them and asked them to look at the things that you are surrounded with. Look at the problems that you are living in with. This was the major contribution of 20th century drama in the development of drama. And what is the 21st century? Because we are living in the third decade of 21st century. That is, 21st century started and 2 decades were over. We are living in the third decade of 21st century. Now this 21st century is more vibrant because the great commercial theatres, professional theatres for earning money and livelihoods developed across England, across America, across the world. And in rest part of the world, in Latin America, in Germany, in Japan, in China, in France, in India, everywhere, experiments and new concerns are becoming part of writings of a play. The very popular name comes in between by name of Polish dramatist and a very powerful person who experimented, who developed a theory called poor theater. His name was Jerzy Grotowski. Jerzy, Jerzy Grotowski, Grotowski, Jerzy Grotowski's poor theater, because he said that theater was not rich, meant for the poor. If you're talking about, if you're targeting someone very rich, if a person is not having much, if an actor or if a theatre group does not have much money, whether they can perform it or not, they have to perform. So, so rejecting the whole notion of performance in a good and posh proscenium theatre, he brought the theatre into public. He said, we need not to pay anything, we have to perform in front of everyone. The hallmark of 21st century playwrights, writing of a play, is nothing but an experimentation, an experimentalism, you can say, is the hallmark of 21st century playwrights. Carol Churchill, with her play Top Girls, she discusses the concept of themselves and all the milieus of feminist approach towards life. She brought all the themes. Her another play, Far Away, discusses about the apocalyptic world viewed by a girl. So in Top Girls, she brought the characters of Pope Joan, Patient Griselda, Lady Ninjo. All these characters are coming, but all the women characters looking at men's world. So kind of feministic approach in performances, in writing of drama. Or the very famous name of 21st century is Sam Shepard. Sam Shepard, living in New York, in America, his play called True West, which brings out the lies beneath the surface. Or Buried Child examines the frightening secrets of dysfunctional family, because nowadays families are dysfunctional. Or another very famous playwright, Suzanne Lori Parks, wrote very experimental play. Suzanne took a play from Brecht, The Death of Last Black Man in the Whole Entire World. This was the title of her play. The death of the last black man in the whole entire world. Suzanne Lori Parks, where she talks about the structures, or her play 365 days per 365 plays. Or a day, a play for one day, that is for 1 year. 365 days is 1 year. 365 days, 365 plays. That was the title of her play, where she talked about a play for a day in a whole year, because your daily life is a kind of a drama. Or Tony Kushner, the very famous writer who wrote a play called Angels in America, which talked about the emotional intensity, and he tried to project American history and tried to develop a kind of wave of imaginative speculation amongst the audience. Or you'll find out not only experiments took place in 21st century drama. August Wilson's Fences shows us the pain of life at the lower end of economic ladder, in the form of that is recognizable, realistic and plausible. Lower end of economic system. What is the condition? And look out, in the pandemic we have seen what is the condition of this lower economic structure of our society. We don't know how would they survive. Even you will find out the very interesting play written by Tom Stoppard, the very famous playwright. The name which I am taking, please remember those names. Tom Stoppard, in his very, very interesting play, idea of pastiche. Pastiche is a basically postmodern term. And if you look at pastiche, you will find out that pastiche used to bring a very different kind of ideas in understanding of human, you can say, uh, understanding. Pastiche is that uh, it is a kind of, you can say, idea that is part of postmodernism. Pastiche is actually a work of visual, a work of art in theater, where it celebrates a kind of literary allusion, not talking of its own story, but taking story of another writer and trying to impose today's situation on yesterday's writer, today's situation on yesterday's drama. That is pastiche. And Tom Stoppard brought a very interesting pastiche, a kind of experiment he did with by writing rewriting, you can say, in the form of pastiche, Shakespeare's Hamlet, and he gave a title, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. These two people, Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, they are the friends of Hamlet. He wrote from that perception. He wrote play from that idea. The invention of love, where it treats the hopeless love of the Oxford classical scholar A. E. Housman and young athlete Morse Jackson, what kind of love they had. And if you see very carefully, Stoppard wrote so many plays with taking themes of earlier plays and trying to bring out the condition of today's society into it. Paula Vogel, who plays frequently, Paula Vogel's play frequently interrupted by dramatic actions with aside. Aside is a dramatic technique where what you feel about other person, you say in one line to the audience and then again start with talking with other person. Look out this definition of this term in literary terms, dictionary of literary terms. Students, please remember one thing, you should have a dictionary of literary terms with you. You should purchase it. That is the most important dictionary. Any dictionary of literary terms. Aside, Paul Vola's play interrupted always with aside, and that they're structured in such a way that it moves emotionally significant sweeps into the stories. The Baltimore Waltz in the play, where the protagonist is a woman, her brother died of AIDS, and then how satire brings out to this, or humor brings out to this tragic situation. Or the very famous drama How I Learned to Drive, which talks about sexual molestation in families. The problems of 21st century are different. The problems of 21st century are not as common as you find it out of 20th century. You can look out so many experiments done by various playwrights. New ideas developed. Very famous Augusto Boal, Brazilian dramatist and theorist. He developed an idea of theatre of oppressed, and tried to point out that we, the audiences, are always, he is not talking about oppression of some person, some society. No, he is talking about oppression of audiences, that audiences are always under a kind of pressure in the theater. They are not visible, so they have to sit in the dark and looking what is happening in front of them, although they know what will happen to that particular hero. So Augusto Boal gave an idea of theatre of oppressed in 20th century, in 21st century. Look out, I'll give you the names. Few names I'll tell you of playwrights of 21st century. Very famous name amongst them was Sarah Rule, R-U-H-L Rule, Sarah Rule. And plays of Sarah Rule was The Clean House or Eurydice, In the Next Room, and The Vibrator Play. These were the 4 plays by Sarah Rule. Very famous writers playwrights who influenced 21st century drama include John Patrick Shanley. John Patrick Shanley's Doubt play won Pulitzer Prize for Drama in 2005. Or Yasmin Reza, a French playwright. Yasmina Reza, a French playwright whose play Art and God of Carnage won Tony Awards in 2009. Or Tracy Letts play August Osage County won Pulitzer Prize in 2008. Or Lynn Nottage, her play Poof, Crumbs from the Table of Joy, and Intimate Apparel with Ruined won Pulitzer Prize in 2009. So you'll find out the 21st century continues with extraordinary energy to explore issues of social, historical, psychological importance using wide range of techniques to which audiences and readers responded positively. So 20th century brought a different kind of change in understanding of drama, in knowing of drama, in making drama very vibrant. So we are in the 3rd phase of 21st century, and still we are waiting for a kind of different writings that are coming in front of us. Even Indian dramatists, they are coming with different kinds of ideas in English. Mahesh Dattani, the very famous Indian English playwright who won Sahitya Akademi Award for English play. He was the first English writer to get Sahitya Akademi Award. Or you have Manjula Padmanabhan, the very famous Indian dramatist, a woman writer, who won the great Greek Onosis Award for her play called Harvest. Or you have Poili Sen Gupta, very famous Indian dramatist, who wrote a very interesting play called Mangalam, and the kids died of tuber. Or you have Annie Zaidi, the very famous playwright, or even the very famous actress Kalki Kochlin. She also wrote plays in English. That's why you will find out all the women playwrights, they are coming out with their ideas and experiments in India as well as across the world in 21st century. So 21st century drama is developing in another direction which can be recorded later on in the history. So friends, we talked about the different ages of drama which are very prominent, which brought change in this genre, which brought a different approach, and how these changes took place right from Greece up to 21st century English drama. We talked about it. I hope that you get all those things in a proper fashion, in a proper way. So tomorrow onwards, we are going to talk about different forms of drama: tragedy, tragicomedy, comedy, and then tragicomedy. And then we will talk about the elements of drama. After this discussion, we will come to an end with the unit 1. Okay, friends?